Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Virginia Trapa, and I'd like to give you a warm welcome to the launch event of the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative on behalf of the Coordination Desk of the One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program. It is for us an honor to have you here with us today. We have a full agenda with plenty of speakers, each and every one of them extremely interesting, so I will not take time. And with further ado, call to join me here at the stage the lead and co-leads of the One Planet Sustainable Tourism Program, so that they can deliver their opening statements from their view, and as they are the institutions supporting our work. I'd like to invite Dr. Dirk Lesser, Director, Sustainable Development of Tourism of UNWTO. Dirk, please. I'd like to also invite Ms. Anne Pluvinage-Nierengarten. She's the Chief of Global Affairs of the Ministry of Ecological and Inclusive Transition of France, and also Mr. Ignacio Angulo Ranz, Deputy Director of the Tourism Development and Sustainability Department at the Secretariat of State for Tourism here in Spain. Dirk, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We have a noise challenge over here, but that is typical for busy tourism fairs. Excellencies, dear friends and partners, welcome to the launch event of the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative. Welcome to the launch of a key initiative of the Sustainable Tourism Program of the One Planet Network. Allow me today to explain, first of all, why this is a very special day. For the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative is so important for us and the tourism sector. UNWTO, together with the governments of France and the government of Spain, are the committed leaders of the Sustainable Tourism Program of the One Planet Network. Together, we develop the objectives and practical actions of the Sustainable Tourism Program. Together, we aim for one objective: accelerating sustainability. This is so special about the initiative. Accelerating the way we consume and produce in a sustainable manner. Accelerating the conscious, responsible use and management of resources. Accelerating the transformation of tourism, so that we can continue to enjoy responsibly tourism, foster through tourism inclusive development, peace and understanding, contribute to the preservation of cultural values, diversity and heritage, and allow people to enjoy the best days of their year, their holidays. Having built this global alliance to fight plastics pollution in the tourism sector is the work and achievement of many actors. Led by the UN Environment and UNWTO, the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative was developed in collaboration with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and will act as the interface for the tourism sector of the new plastics economy global commitment of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Crucial to the work launched here today was also the advisory committee. The advisory committee of the initiative, composed, besides the panelists here today, who are also members of the committee, Accor, Airline Sustainable Alliance, Iberostar, TUI. I also want to mention APTA, ANVR, Considerate Group, the International Tourism Partnership, MVO Netherlands, Travel Without Plastics, and WWF, as some of the partners advising us on the right way forward. Today is an important day. Today we focus on ending the plastic pollution. Today we focus on the role tourism can play in shifting consumer behavior, but also using this commitment as a starting point to transform the way we do business. I thank you all very much for joining us during this busy FITUR here at the stand in this loud environment, but that is the right moment to express our commitment to something which is so important for us to transform tourism. I thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you very much, Dirk. Anne, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, first of all, thank you to all to be here. Thank you for the organization of this meeting, Dirk. Thank you for the warm welcome in this beautiful city of Madrid. Here in December, in November, we welcomed the COP. And thank you also to all the members of the United Nations Programme for the Environment and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation for organizing this moment we are all sharing right now. Yes, France is co-leader of the One Planet Sustainable Programme, thanks to Svetlana Mikhaela and the work she did in Paris with all the teams of the coordination desk. We are happy here as France to launch this initiative today. We all know that we need you, we need all actors, business and stakeholders on board today, because we want to be ambitious and also because we want all to succeed. It's now the right moment. France is the first destination in the world for tourism, and we are all aware that this development has to be balanced with the environmental protection. 90 million international tourists every year and 2 million jobs. It's a big part of our economy. And we still believe that we can even be more ambitious, but now we have to make it more sustainable. This initiative today is part of this ambition. It's a concrete application of the principle of circular economy to reduce our footprint of the sector. More circularity can lead to use less plastics. In France, we have a law now dedicated to this topic. It will be published very soon, and we will now have in France a strong basis for this transition. We want to reach 100% of recycled plastic for 2025. We also adopted a roadmap for the circular economy in link with the business sector. The model produce, consume, and throw is no longer an option for us. Let's reach now measurable objectives together. We, as friends, as colleagues, we will be at your side for this transition and this big challenge. We wish us all a great success, and particular thank also to the Ellen MacArthur, the members of the advisory committee, and all the people with them we are today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ignacio, the floor is yours.
Gracias, Virginia. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Here I am. I'm very pleased to take part in this meeting, in this launch, on behalf of the Secretary of State for Tourism of Spain, Mrs. Isabel Oliver. As you know, the FITUR agenda is huge and she can't join us, but she wishes the best luck to this initiative. And we, as Secretariat of State for Tourism of Spain, are very concerned with this subject. As Dirk has, thank you. As Dirk has said, Spain has joined the One Planet Network, the Sustainable Tourism Program of the One Planet Network, as co-lead in August of the last year. And we are very proud to share this role with the government of France and to work alongside the World Tourism Organization in this acceleration of the shift towards sustainability in tourism. So in this moment, and the Spanish government is, the Spanish Tourism Authority is developing a new strategy agenda for 2030. And in this agenda, we are really concerned about sustainability. So we are really committed with the plastics initiative and with this launch. I would like to say that this task is not easy in Spain, given the size of our tourism sector. Spain is the second world destination after France, and also the second in revenue as well as in a number of tourists. And our tourism sector represents 12% of GDP and 12.7% of employment. As I say, one of the objectives of the new agenda for the tourist sector is the need to ensure the sustainable growth of tourism, which includes achieving a balanced growth among territories, reducing its negative externalities over residents and local communities, and crucially, directing the development of tourism activities towards the principles of circular economy, protection of the environment, and the use of clean energy sources. The pollution originated by plastics, both marine and inland, and the excessive use of energy and materials of a single use confirms the fight against plastic waste and pollution as one of the most relevant lines of action to ensure sustainable growth in tourism. Therefore, this Global Tourism Plastics Initiative that we launched today could not be more in accordance with our vision and our priorities. An example of this is Paradores de Turismo de España. As you know, the state-owned hotel chain with its 97 hotels, many of them located in historic places and in protected natural areas, have banned in 2009 all individual bottles for amenities such as shower gel, soap and shampoo from the roofs, and in parallel all remaining complements like toothbrushes or shower caps are now made of biodegradable materials. We see with satisfaction the important role that leading tourism business have in this initiative. We can only praise their commitment and support to make it possible. Their global footprint will ensure that the effects of the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative will reach destinations all over the world and that others will certainly follow. Finally, I would like to thank the Ellen MacArthur Foundation for the work in fighting plastic pollution, the effort with the United Nations Environment Programme, and the role in setting up the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative that we launched today. Thank you to the WTO and my colleague from France, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you very much, Ignacio. Thank you, Dirk. Thank you, Anne, for your inspiring words. It is really great to have Lead and Colleagues supporting our work who are so committed. I think it is now a good moment to watch a video statement from United Nations Environment Programme, who, as you know, is hosting the Secretariat of the One Planet Network. They could not make it today due to Madrid due to strict travel regulations, but they still didn't want to miss the opportunity to address you all. So it'll take me a second and I will show the video.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, we're all here today because we know it is time for tourism to act on plastic pollution. Tourism accounts for more than 10% of global GDP, and more than 1 in 10 jobs are related to tourism. It has a huge impact around the world, creating growth, prosperity, but also potentially impacts on the environment. That is why, in our effort to join together to tackle plastic pollution, we need a systemic approach. That is why we want to launch with you today the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative, which takes the systemic approach. Led by a UN Environment Program with the World Tourism Organization, and supported by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, we believe if we join together, we can tackle plastic pollution in tourism. This initiative will support companies and destinations in ending plastic pollution. We share the goal of phasing out plastic pollution by 2025 and ensuring that plastic items are recyclable, reusable, or compostable by 2025. Friends and colleagues, this is not about governments or the UN or businesses or civil society acting alone. This is about coming together on a complex problem which we can solve together. We hope you will join us.
As you see, those were strong. It was a strong message from Stephen Stone, Chief of the Resources and Market Branch at the Economy Division in UNEP. Before we start with the high-level segment, I'd like to also take a minute to display a video that we have built to present the initiative. So you're already getting a glimpse or a grasp of the content and what we would like to advance, and then we will start with the high-level segment.
Thank you, Virginia, very much for taking us through the first part of the program. We now want to use the second part of the high-level remarks to frame the initiative and give it the necessary political support. We count, first of all, I want to acknowledge here the presence of the Executive Director of UNWTO, Manuel Butler, and the Chairman of the Executive Council, the Minister of Tourism and Wildlife of Kenya, Mr. Najib Balala, and we will be joined in a few minutes by the Secretary General of UNWTO, Mr. Zurab Pololikashvili. Now, Excellency, I would like to give you the opportunity to address here the audience why you as a country, you as a minister took the lead on the issue of plastics in Kenya, and how do you see that this initiative will help accelerating the stipulated and necessary shift in tourism, transforming the way we do tourism business today? Excellency, please.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to recognize the Secretary General, my friend Zurab Pololikashvili, and also Dak, thank you very much for inviting us here, but also recognizing the government of France and Spain. This is a very important subject, not only for tourism, but for the world. First, I want to extend my sincere appreciation to the government of Spain for according us the warm hospitality during FITUR. Secondly, I wish to thank the SG and UNEP. UNEP is based in Nairobi. You saw Steve Stone is talking from Nairobi. Nairobi is Kenya, and the UNEP with collaboration with Elaine MacArthur Foundation for this great initiative to fight plastic pollution, and all tourism stakeholders and participants here for taking up this challenge. Kenya is indeed proud to join the launch of the Global Plastic Tourism Initiative and partner with UNWTO, UNEP, to articulate and support this and scale up action by tourism stakeholders to build a global alliance to fight plastic pollution. It is cognizant to all of us how plastic pollution harmfully impacts our lands, ecosystems, waters, marine life, as well as our food chain and plastic health and public health. According to the United Nations Environmental Programme 2018 report, the production of plastic outpaced that of every other material, with most of the plastic produced designed to be thrown away after being used only once. We purchase and consume millions of plastic per year and recycle only 9%. Most governments around the world are increasingly becoming conscious to the scale of plastic pollution, and with introducing total bans and heavy penalties to curb single-use plastic waste. But I don't think this is the solution alone. It must be a culture inbuilt in us. We must have the culture of stopping plastic and waste. Plastic were introduced in Kenya in 1960s as a simple solution for packaging. Over the years, these plastics have continuously been used and dumped recklessly, becoming a biggest challenge in solid waste management. To address the challenge, Kenya started by enacting laws to eliminate all processes and activities that degrade the environment. In 2010, Kenya adopted a new constitution that recognized clean and healthy environment as a right for all, with an obligation upon the government and its citizens to safeguard that right. In the effort to uphold and adhere to this provision, the government has developed a legislation and policies to address the plastic waste challenge. These strategies define actions to be taken to address the waste challenge at national and county level. Kenya has taken a bold step to tackle the menace posed by the single-use plastics or the disposal plastics that are commonly used for plastic packaging and are intended to be used only once before they are thrown away or recycled. These include grocery bags, food packaging, bottles, straws, containers, cups, and cutlery items, among others. The Kenyan government banned the manufacture, importation, and use of plastic bag carriers and flat bags for commercial and household packaging, effective July 2017. So Kenya became the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to do a ban on plastic bags. To adhere to this ban, the government further introduced penalties as high as $40,000 for anyone violating this ban, either by producing, selling, or even just carrying a plastic bag. It's illegal to walk into the airport with a plastic bag in Kenya. So when you reach at the airport, you must keep the plastic bag in the plane and not bring it into the country. Enforcement of this ban has contributed greatly to a cleaner environment in Kenya. When you come to Kenya before, you see plastic all over the environment. Now you hardly see any, because they've all been removed through this ban as well. The food chain is also less contaminated. Fishermen in the sea and lakes are seeing fewer bags entangled in their nest, and the ban prompted the manufacturer to be more innovative, and it has led to the production of more friendly and biodegradable carrier bags and packaging materials. During the high-level Sustainable Blue Economy Conference held in Nairobi, Kenya, 2018 November, Kenya made several commitments, among them to confront the challenge of waste management and plastic pollution. In line with this commitment, on the 5th of June, which is the World Environmental Day, 2019, the President of the Republic of Kenya announced that the ban on single plastic in all our protected areas, including beaches, national parks, marine parks, forests, and conservation areas, effective 5th June 2020 this year. There is no plastic allowed in these areas anymore now. The various stakeholders that are to be affected by these challenges have 1 year period to institute necessary mechanism to adopt to the change of this law. The initiative is aimed at achieving sustainable tourism and conservation for all our natural resources. Ladies and gentlemen, we should embrace technology and come up with innovative solutions that will minimize or even abolish the use of plastics. We can all start by adopting what Kenya will be doing effective from 5th of June 2020, banning single-use plastic in all our protected areas. Let us all hold stakeholders' engagement consultations by discussing this issue at large and come up with solutions with regards to the different touristic destinations that we all offer. By 2025, a clear, concrete roadmap for implementation of this agenda must be in place. Finally, I would like to thank all of you for being here, and particularly this Global Plastic Initiative. It's very important. As Kenya joins the UNWTO, United Nations Environment, Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and the global tourism stakeholders on this launch, this will ensure that the path to sustainable tourism is heightened and that we have a futuristic, greener tourism. Thank you and good afternoon. Thank you. Oh, good.
Thank you, Excellency, for these very inspiring and remarkable efforts of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, I have now the pleasure to introduce the Secretary General of UNWTO, Mr. Zura Polo Likashvili.
Thank you, Dirk. First of all, warm welcome and thank you for your participation. Thank you, dear Minister, dear friend, for this excellent presentation. I would say, and I will go more further, that I think that it was mentioned many times during last years that we need actions. You know, we know the problems, we know where we are, but unfortunately we don't act. We are talking a lot, and this is the role of our organization. I think that to use these cases like you presented now, I don't want to mention what is the situation and what is the photo of the plastic problem worldwide, because I see many experts in this room, and I want to support and call and use three components which we can use, I think, and which we can use, and it can have a huge effect on this problem. First of all, to use and distribute among our member states nice showcases, like you mentioned. I'm sure that many of our member states, they don't know what is happening in Kenya and how you develop your strategy against the plastic. If you solve your problem in Kenya, it doesn't mean that we will solve worldwide. So, and our role is to make it bigger, and thanks to your leadership, and I want to mention the minister, he is chairing, and Kenya is chairing our executive council, and we need to use this moment, and we need to use these nice showcases. The second thing is we need more private sector with us. Private sector can play a very important role, because without investments, without financial support, and I know that many companies, big ones, small ones, they are invested a lot in fighting against the plastic, and especially in cruise business. We have full support from cruise big players worldwide, and I'm sure that if we can call them and to make it more serious and talk with our member states, the situation will be much more better, and there will be some concrete actions, as I mentioned. And third point is innovation. I think we need to recall again our member states, and we had this fantastic experience because we've done many startup competitions. We can ask the best cases and best ideas worldwide, and then to put it on our agenda, how we can fight against this very damaging issue in tourism sector. So let's do it. It's not easy. It's very difficult, by the way, but there are always some solutions. And thanks again to Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is with us, and I'm sure that we can attract more and more foundations, companies. And again, I want to go back to propaganda. We have many, imagine hotels and air companies. If we use them to fight against and to make the propaganda for our kids, for travelers, I'm sure that it will give us some better results than we are now. So thank you again, and I want to recall and to give more media coverage to our events. Maybe we can use every hour big events like ITBs, now we are at FITUR, and make more noise, more crowd, and I'm sure that we will make it better than we are now.
The context was set really clearly just now by the government of Spain, France, Kenya, and by the Secretary General. Like, there's a need to act. There's a possibility to act as well, and there's high urgency. And I just this week I also saw that China has also introduced some policy on plastic waste, specifically also for the tourism sector, asking restaurants to come up to reduce by 30% single-use plastics items, and hotels come up with or stop offering single-use items by 2022 to their guests. So the urgency is there, and it's definitely moving. So great moment to go into the further details of this initiative, and I can imagine you're quite hungry to now know what have we come up with this initiative and what it's going to do. And I have a great panel that is going to help me do this. But before we can go in there, I need to give you a little bit more context of what we have technically tried to realize here. And I also need to introduce myself. So my name is Gerald Neighbor. I work with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation on the new plastics economy. And all right, I need to break for a couple of minutes. Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, we'll do it later. Thank you. Work on the new plastic economy initiative, specifically on the global commitment, where my team and myself is responsible for. And I need to take you back to 2016, when the Ellen MacArthur Foundation had been working for a couple of years on trying to get this idea of a circular economy landed with a lot of businesses and governments. And we decided to show that a circular economy can be realized in practice and at scale, at a global scale. And we chose plastics as the material to work with to show that it can be done. And we created the New Plastic Economy Initiative, and then 2 years ago we also created the global commitment. It has been referenced a couple of times. The global commitment, in effect, is a vehicle to unite the global plastic value chain behind a common vision in which plastics never becomes waste again. That's what that global commitment tries to do. Currently, we have more than 450 signatories of the global commitment, who together represent about 20% of the global volume of plastic packaging. So quite a substantial, significant representation already, but also governments. France is also signatory, United Kingdom, Chile, Rwanda, several countries have also joined in this movement. And we're running this global commitment together with the United Nations Environmental Programme, and about a couple of months ago we sat together, and then the World Tourism Organization joined us, and we said, how can we now use the global commitment to also mobilize the tourism sector in this fight against the plastic pollution? So we sat together and we quickly realized, let's basically align the work. So use the global commitment and the vision that we all work towards, the same commitments, the same definitions, to unite also the tourism sector, all of the players, so from the operators to hotels, to airlines, the whole value chain in tourism as well, against those same visions. So that's what we set out to do. And we have got a lot of help from the advisory committee, has been referenced before as well. Some of you here in the audience have been part of that to help us shape and understand how the commitments on plastics can also be used for the tourism sector. We cannot recycle our way out of this. If we think about solutions, we need to think about a whole set, and that's what you see on the screen here, a whole set of coherent commitments that we want to work towards, both upstream, so redesigning plastic packaging, and also downstream, making sure we collect, sort, and recycle properly. Only if we do that together, we may have a stab at making a solution that works. And the solution is a rethink of the system, and that's another third principle. Plastics is not by definition bad. The system in which plastic is used is the bad thing here. So that's what we need to focus on. And lastly, not one organization is big enough to do this on its own. So again, collaboration and working together is what we needed to do. So if we very quickly look at these commitments, and these have been inputted with you guys here, we start with elimination. So if you think about the plastic packaging that you use or the items that you use, which one do you not need to use, or which one can be innovated so they are now as a better recyclable. Another shift is from single use to reuse. So go away from disposable items, but go to different materials of solutions that you can reuse and refill. A third one is whatever packaging and items of plastics you deal with, make sure that everything is compostable, reusable, or recyclable. The fourth one, and that's showing that the system works, incorporate recycled content. So make sure that you create a market for recycled content, so you can create new products with that waste product at the end, going back into new products. Commit to collaboration and invest in recycling rates. The fifth one, and the last one, of course, these set of commitments are asked to the industry to make them, and then we also require them to report on progress, because that is two things. Show what progress you made, so show what's happening and how are you succeeding and where do you have difficulties, and also telling the world that you're not playing lip service, you're dead serious about it and you want to make progress. So that's, in a nutshell, the more in-depth framework that we've developed as the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative, now for the accommodation providers. And I'd like now to talk with the panel to hear from them what they think of it and what they want to do. Is everybody mic'd up? I think everybody is. So very good. We can start, I guess. First, very simple question. Could you just really briefly, and I'll start with you, Megan, just introduce yourself, your company, and the bonus question, tell us one thing about your company nobody knows.
Okay, great. My name is Dr. Megan Mariko, and I'm the Global Director for Sustainability for Iberostar Group. And one thing that few people know is we launched today some pretty bold ambitions for targets for sustainability to 2030. One in particular is that all ecosystems that surround Iberostar properties will be in improving ecological health alongside profitable tourism for Iberostar in 2030. So that's a new fact about Iberostar that we will be achieving in the next couple of years.
Great, thank you very much. Very high ambition. Matt.
My name's, is this working? Matt Crane. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Monty's Bakehouse. Some people will have heard of us, some won't, but we make around 40 million items of food packaging which are supplied to airlines all over the world. What people won't know is that we were the first company back in 2008 to move to completely sustainably sourced and recyclable packaging that can be boarded onto aircraft. So we've been at this for a while.
What's the one fact that nobody knows?
Sorry?
What's the fact that nobody knows?
You might not know that. And we will, out of the concern we had, we founded the Airline Sustainability Forum, which is looking at cabin waste. I guess the tourism link is we get a lot of people to the destinations they're going on holiday.
Thank you. Branislav?
Hi, my name is Branislav Mizenko, and I'm a sustainability manager at TUI Group, one of the leading tourism organizations around the world. The portfolio consists of hotels, tour operators, airlines, cruises, and destination management companies around the world, serving in more than 100 destinations globally. So it's a massive organization with more than 70,000 employees, which enables us to provide holidays to around 28 million customers around the world. And the quality of these holidays directly is related to the health of environment as well as well-being of the local communities. So we've been working on environmental management for the past 25 years. And think about something maybe no one knows, because these are maybe not completely new facts. Last year or the year before, our colleagues in TUI Nordic have introduced a completely new possibility for our staff, and they can get microchipped. So get a microchip in their hand, and instead of using plastic cards to get access to the office or pay for food, they can just swipe their hand and get whatever they need. So might be very controversial for some, and some would never do it, while some of our colleagues really take the lead and so far have been enjoying it. So
very interesting. Thank you. Very interesting fact. So they also sometimes say that's a solution for plastic waste. We should make sure that every piece of plastic can be identified, like the way you did with your colleagues. So maybe that's also a solution. And thank you, Arnoud, please.
Hello everyone. So I'm Arnaud Herman, in charge of sustainability for Accor Group. So Accor, in few words, one of the biggest hotel chains across the world, a French one, with more than 30 brands, 5,000 hotels, and so on. 300,000 people working for us. Talking about the brand, so one fact maybe you don't know is that the very last brand we launched, called Greet, the first hotel has opened in Beaune in France last year. And this brand is fully sustainability oriented, and particularly on circular economy. So you will find a fully eco-design concept. All the furnitures and the design try to be recycled, reused from other usage. There is no packaging, so everything is shared across reusable packaged. And we try to improve insertion as well, so full design. So there will be more than 10 hotels opening in a few weeks, and we target to have 300 hotels by 2025. So definitely sustainability is on the move as well in our brands.
Great, thank you very much. I hope you would agree we have quite a good expert group here, and they all have been helping us over the last couple of months developing this set of requirements for the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative. So really keen to hear more about what you have to say about, first of all, to start with that, where are you currently in your journey on finding ways to deal with plastic pollution? So that will be basically my first question around that. Megan, can I start with you again? So Iberostar announced to remove all single-use plastics from your rooms, from your hotels. Could you elaborate a little bit why you made that decision, and what have you seen ever since you made that announcement?
Absolutely. So Iberostar is a family-owned, Spanish-based luxury hotel and resort chain. We have hotels in 15 countries around the world and about 110 hotels that are operating. And for us, that was the location of focus, right? The location of focus and the region of focus, which you can also see reflected in the commitments to focus on a location within the hotel to try and tackle the single-use plastics items. So a year and a half ago, we decided to make a really bold commitment and say that we would remove all single-use plastics from our rooms in all of our operations by 2019. So I'm very proud to announce that if you walk into an Iberostar today, you will not see single-use plastics in the rooms. And if you do, you should tell us at Wave of Change on social media, because this is all part of our evolution to make sure that these steps are very aggressive and progressive moving forward. This is an initiative that we're working to do in all of our hotels at the end of this year, meaning bars and kitchens and restaurants, within legal restrictions, because I think what we'll also determine is that plastics are a challenging item to avoid, but it's the smart use of that plastic that's part of it. I think for us, what was really important, and what I hope that this commitment also reflects, is that it's about the process. It's about first looking at what are the items that you're using, how do we simplify them, how do we find the items that we no longer need and remove them altogether. Then how do we replace those items that we still need with non-synthetic alternatives, and if we must, find biodegradable solutions at the end. And so I think that method was really important to us. And for the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative, thinking about recycled origin in the plastic that remains was a really important step of enlightenment for us to think that we still have work to do in our journey for a circular economy for plastics. And so that's a little bit of Iberostar's journey and vision for our work on moving beyond plastics.
You started with rooms, you said. What do you think is the most difficult area for you to get rid of or work with a better plastic solution, basically?
Hands down, it would be kitchens, and I'm sure you all have had experiences as well to think a little bit about how food service works without single-use plastics. I think for us, it's been thinking very innovatively about how we use a buffet setting to offer quality items in bulk, right? Or how do we assure that the items that we're using can be made in-house? So instead of importing bread or making it in-house, it elevates the quality of the product, and it also reduces the amount of packaging that needs to be the process. But there are still barriers that remain, that legislation requires the use of certain plastics currently in some locations for health safety requirements. But I think that's all part of the discussion to say how far can we go within legislation and then push that boundary even further with some innovation.
Thank you. Great to hear. Maybe a good jump to Arnaud. Would you agree with kitchen being the most difficult area to work on?
Yeah, so I would testimony as well, and I'm very proud to say that Accor is officially announcing today that we'll remove every single-use plastic items from our hotels by 2022. So it means that several hundred millions of products made with plastic will be pushed away within 3 years, which is a great achievement. So the same as you, it took us more than 1 year to be prepared and get ready to announce this kind of thing, because it's a huge process to be implemented. We have to involve the supply chains, the suppliers, to make sure that we can find alternatives that are not only reach the quality we need, the price we need to have, but also make sure that the environmental impact of the replacement solution is better than the initial one. So we've performed a lot of life cycle analysis to make sure that the final alternative will decrease the environmental pressure we have on the planet. And then there's a full set of operational guidelines to be prepared for our brands, for our hotels, to get ready to make it happen. So for sure, yes, it's a big deal. A huge challenge to make our suppliers ready to switch. You were asking for one of the biggest items to switch. So we are talking about dozens of different items, because if you look at the plastic products you can find in the hotels, there are dozens and dozens. All the packaging in your breakfasts, the different bags you have to make the laundry, for the additional pillow, the different amenities, the bottles you have of water, of shampoo, and so on. And so one of the biggest one we are trying to find solution with is the beverages of bottles, the plastic one, especially water bottles, because it's huge number of products. It's sometimes easy to replace in meeting, for instance, in restaurants. It's more difficult when you come to the room, because you have to find as practical solutions as a bottle of water. But this is where we need involvement with the suppliers, and the cooperation we can get out of this group definitely will help to have a good collaboration with them.
Perfect, thank you, and congrats on the announcement to be following soon. Yeah. Maybe to now bring in Branislav to the discussion, because you mentioned already in your introduction you also run hotels, but you do a lot more activities. And just by the sheer amount of it, I would wonder, where would you start? I mean, what is the, it sounds so much. And I've looked at your website, and you have reported to have removed about 140 million pieces of single-use plastics. Could you maybe share with us, where did you begin, and what have you seen from that journey?
Good question, and the answer is we had to begin everywhere in all these areas. We had to start, and we're lucky we have a great team as well of sustainability professionals who focus on different areas of the business. Because if you look at the whole tourism industry, growing plastic pollution affects it all, and especially the beaches and the oceans, which are so important for our destinations. So when we looked where to start, we of course decided that we had to start with our operations where the unnecessary single-use plastics are, so that we can address it directly at the cause where it's possible to remove as soon as possible, and it's also not needed in those areas. But when looking at our all the areas, actually we made the commitment to remove 250 million single-use plastic items by end of 2020, so by the end of this year. As mentioned, in all those areas. But if we look at our operations, the biggest supplier category are the hotel partners, and they represent around, or a bit more than half of our direct operating costs. And if you also look at the customer journey of our typical customer, the most time they spend is in or around the hotel or from the holiday. It's not on the plane. So we also have a highest potential and priority remove most of the single-use plastic items in our hotels. And how did we achieve? How did we start? By end of 2018, we were able to report more than 100 million single-use plastic items. From those 140 million single-use plastic items removed were in the hotels. And that's through direct collaboration with the hotel partners. As Arnaud mentioned as well, we launched guidelines to help them and to work with them and find the focus areas where they can work on the reductions and what the priorities could be. We've been working also closely on developing some workshops for our hoteliers where we see if they have any problems and how they can find a solution for them, and that has been done with some expert organizations such as Travel Foundation, Travel Foundation as well, but also the Travel Without Plastic. I can see Jo Hendricks over there. She called a workshop in Turkey just a couple of months ago. So there is a lot of initiatives going around for our hotels. I could mention some great examples and initiatives. Such as, for example, our Robinson hotels in Maldives, but also some other hotels. They managed to completely remove the water bottles because they have their own bottling plants, which is of course not possible everywhere, and you really need to consider where it makes sense and where it doesn't make sense. But it was one of the great achievements. But other areas of the business, although maybe they might be smaller, they're definitely not left behind, and they've been working quite hard on the plastic reduction and on the plastic reduction strategy. So, for example, our TUI cruises, they have a very comprehensive and ambitious program called Wasteless Plastic Reduction Program to target plastic items on board our ships. Our airlines have been working also quite heavily on plastic reductions, and it's been almost 30 million single-use plastic items removed in the past 2 years. But I'm sure Matt can talk more into detail what's being removed, but exactly it's all about what's being served to the customers with, in regards to food, but also not using plastic packaging, like the unnecessary packaging for the blankets or for the pillows, etc. We also have TUI Care Foundation, which is our independent charitable foundation, and they work on a number of different projects all around the globe. And one of the big stakeholders, which I'm really happy, and I'm sure you all see also in your operations, is that our staff and our customers, they start to become more ambassadors of sustainability, and they are also themselves interested and they want to drive it further. So actually we have lots of colleagues who want to do directly themselves something in the destination. So we managed to create a network of ambassadors and champions. So I think that's also one great of the achievements, and we should hopefully go further and further, and we'll manage to work together on it.
Yeah, I think that's what you see a lot. Like the problem sometimes has an interesting side effect that so many people get enthusiastic to do something about it, as you say, with your employees and guests. That has some quite positive things. Before we go into Matt, there was one thing you mentioned costs, and I can imagine maybe other organizations thinking, I want to do something, but it's probably going to cost me. Do you have one of you any reference on this? Like, does everything cost you money, or can you also do it with a positive benefit? Like, any perspective on that?
I can give a concrete example.
Yep.
When we were making decisions to remove all of the single-use plastics from our room, at first that was the reaction. How much is that going to cost, right? But when I was talking about the process, first you think about the items you have and you consolidate them. That is a really important process to make sure that you're purchasing effectively. And then you remove specific items altogether because maybe you don't need that extra amenity and that your service is something you can make up for it. But I think for us, it ultimately ended up demonstrating that we could actually invest in a higher quality product. So now that we have dispensers, multi-use dispensers, we have a biodegradable, higher quality organic cosmetic that was in place of the products we were using before. And so the cost savings actually allowed us to elevate the quality of the product in the process, and that there are examples where it can not only be cost effective, but you can actually increase the quality of the product.
Great examples.
If I can add also from our side, we've experienced that, for example, in packaging, it's not necessary to pack everything separately. So actually, our suppliers were able to remove the number of packages to pack more in bulk, and therefore the cost of the packaging went down. And at the end, it either stayed the same or could it actually be reinvested into other materials?
Yeah, thank you. And I think the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative is also set up to capture these learnings and share that, of course, with the industry. So thanks for that. Matt, if I can ask you to comment on, because as you said in your introduction, CEO of Montes Bakehouse, but also initiator of the Airline Sustainability Forum, hinted already by Branislav, that might be a much more difficult sector to work on plastics. What is the contribution of airlines to this topic?
I think airlines have got an inherent problem. They have a high CO2 emission through the aircraft flying in the first place, as well as a cabin waste problem, and the two are actually related, and you have to factor in both.
Exactly.
If you looked at business class, for example, on an airline which is predominantly a rotable product, so the cutlery is washed at the other end, you look at the economy side, that is predominantly an economy cabin is disposable, where most of it is trash. The benefit of the rotable side is obviously you might look at that and say that's got a better footprint and there's less plastic involved. But the problem is it weighs more. So when you have the weight of it, you have the fuel burn, and that is a predominant argument and debate that airlines have to go through as to how they reconcile those two. So let's just look at airlines in total to start with. They currently contribute around just over 2% to the CO2 emissions of the world is aircraft. But that industry is growing. Our industry is growing at around 4 to 6% year on year at the moment. It's predominantly growing within Asia. And it is there that the offload of cabin waste and recycling there is the poorest, but it's the area of the highest growth. And as the rest of the industry in the world starts to actually green itself with that growth, the airlines, which are around 2%, they could grow to up around 20% of the emissions and the problem that we have. And that's a real issue, because it's the foundation of the tourism industry in many ways, because a lot of people are flying there, but it's also economy and business. So a solution has to be found. And 2% may not sound very much, but 2% is actually the entire global footprint emissions of the entire country of Germany. So when you get to 20%, you're talking about a really sizable problem. So there's a lot of this conundrum going on around what is the best thing that airlines can do around a rotable, what we call a rotable washable service versus a disposable service versus CO2 emissions, and then thinking about how all of that waste that comes off an aircraft is managed when it lands wherever it lands. So that's the conundrum. So the ASF, which we've set up, is to try and actually bring the airlines together who are all competing. They all have got their own sustainability initiatives. They don't particularly want necessarily to share them and how they're doing it. And we need these guys to collaborate. And it's often the smaller suppliers as ourselves who become the whipping boy underneath, because we're asked to do different things by different people. And we're trying to foster a group of airlines to come together. And actually the first thing that we want to do is map the end-to-end supply chain across cabin waste. And to give you an idea of the size of the prize, for anybody here that goes on holiday and you're traveling for over 4 or 5 hours, for every one passenger, you are making about 1.3 kilograms of waste, plastic and paper waste. Whether it's off your blanket, your headset, it's your meal dish, it's your plastic cup. Most people on a flight of around 6 or 7 hours will use up to 6 plastic cups. The wine, the water, the refreshment service that comes past, all of that is thrown away. It is never used again. This has to stop. But the only way to do that is to bring everybody together and get them to talk, and that's the purpose of the ASF. So we have committed, predominantly within the One World Alliance, which involves people like Qatar Airways and British Airways. TUI were at our last conference in October. We've committed to come together to work with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, with the GTPI, to map the end-to-end supply chain for cabin waste. From the sourcing of paper or plastic, how much CO2 is going into this stuff, how much energy, how are the caterers handling it at the airport, how is it loaded, and then what happens from there. Because what does happen at the moment is it goes back to the caterer at the airport where it lands. It is segregated as best they can, and then we have a problem because international law does not like bio-waste and biohazard because it's come from a different country, and many countries, regardless of what it is, insist that it is incinerated. And that can include unused bottles of water, for example, everything. So we've got a really big challenge to challenge legislation as much as anything else as well. And it's a huge issue that we have to face. But the great thing is that having started the ASF, the enthusiasm from the airline and supplier community to come together to fix this problem is very, very high. And what we've got at the moment is airlines wanting to make changes. Some of them are trying to take plastic off and use bamboo or other things. That could make things worse. What we've got to do is actually just work out what is the right thing. I noticed a comment that was made at the beginning by yourself, Gerald, which was plastic is not bad. Plastic is actually probably one of the most cleverest inventions made by man. The issue is what we're doing with it and how we're actually managing it. And it's the management that has to go. I don't think we'll ever get rid of plastics, but we will get to a point where we better manage it and recover it and reuse it. And we have to solve that problem within the airline side. So the commitment that the airlines that have joined us are nursing towards to make is that they will manage that offload waste at their home hubs, so the big airports around the world, and they will work to regenerate the plastics back through instead of incinerating everything through, and we'll change it. And that's what we're out to try and do.
Thank you. That's a great outline of the issue, basically, and it's quite sobering, I would nearly say, the things that you now brought forward and what you have to tackle. And we're all here, so we hope that the Global Tourism Plastic Initiative can contribute to doing that.
Yeah.
So that's what I would like to ask you in the final questions about, like, what in your perspective is, what should the initiative do, and how can it contribute to each and every of your individual journey? So maybe because everybody wants fast results quickly, right? So if we think about the initiative, maybe Branislav, if I can ask you this question, what should happen through the initiative to get to fast results who are also sustainable or circular? What would you think?
Well, I think, as we are already here from different areas, I think the collaboration is key, and these discussions, what we are having right now, I think that's already taking us the right direction. So absolutely, from my point of view, collaboration is the key to make sure that we address the plastic pollution in the right way, and then we find alternatives or work with the right suppliers and work with find right alternatives. So most of the initiatives I also mentioned, they weren't just something what we do on our own, but it's always done with partners, with expert organizations, and that's what Global Tourism Plastic Initiative does. It unites the whole tourism sector and the whole industry. So if we look at an example that it really brings businesses and governments to work together, so that, for example, it doesn't happen that a hotel separates everything and then it ends up all in the landfill, or vice versa, that everything is ready in the destination, but the hotelier doesn't care and just doesn't mix it. So this really shouldn't and won't be happening thanks to this collaboration and the initiatives we are going to do together and exchange and constantly work together. So I think that's one of the main things that needs to happen.
Yeah, great, thanks. And we're talking about transition. That often means, new partnerships and maybe investment, but also change of behavior.
We wanted to remove the single-use items for shampoos and so on in our luxury brands last year. So we made a survey to our guests. And the results of this survey was quite balanced. And at the end of the day, our understanding was that the people was not ready to remove this kind of items. 18 months after, we'll do it. And the feedback from our guests is very positive from now. So it shows that you need to make sure the solutions you provide is acceptable for your guests. So it does not happen to be the case for these single-use amenities in the bathroom, but there are other products where our clients are not necessarily ready to move for, and the restaurant area is a very good example. people are not ready to share the same pot of jam or the same pot of butter at the morning. And so it will be very important to have these common languages, common communication, common proposal for behaviors in our respective brands, because it will teach and raise the awareness among our guests on the importance of changing the behaviors every day. So having a common initiatives that can propose the same kind of solution across our businesses is definitely moving in the right direction and making sure that at the end of the day the guest will accept everything and will be very happy to do so.
Thank you. Yeah, that spurs me a thought on my side. Starbucks also just joined the global commitments to join the fight against plastic pollution, and they also related to the fact that they tried to introduce a reuse model earlier, but that failed because it was too early or something. And so having the right moment to introduce and go for that change is also very important. So yeah, well noted. Matt, I had a question for you, which let's paint the picture in the future. And you decide which year it is. But if you would, in the future, and we would board a random airplane, what will we see there in terms of plastic usage?
My hope is that within the next 5, 6, 7 years, we get to a point where the whole of the airline community has come together and agreed there are only 4 or 5 different plastic types or packaging types that are allowed to actually ever be loaded onto an aircraft, and that doesn't exist right now. And what that will do is it will provide the waste management companies at airports the opportunity to know exactly what they're dealing with, whereas at the moment they don't. And I think if we can just get that working in the major hub airports of the world, we will be able to recover and regenerate so much more and have a much better chance of then challenging the governments around the world. So I'd like to see boarding an aircraft where there's definitely less plastic on there, and whatever is on there can actually come back and be reused 10, 20, 30 times as plastics can be.
All right, thank you. Last question to you, Megan. It was already alluded to by Matt, but the question is, do you think there's a future for plastics in the industry? And I specifically asked that because it was alluded to earlier that there is quite a negative tendency from a lot of guests and tourists towards the material for obvious reasons. But what is your perspective on this?
Yeah, it's a tricky topic. We have a saying in our office that the misuse of plastic is a far greater enemy than the material itself. Yeah. And I think for us that is embodying the fact that we need to be thinking about the circular economy, which is why we talked about motivation as well, right? And for us at Iberostar, for everyone to get behind the incredible complexity to implement these solutions in an amazing amount of time, for us it was in a year and a half, you really need a motivation and something that can move not only your employees but the clients to join that with you. So for us it was our Wave of Change movement, which was our commitment to plastics, seafood, and coastal health, which is where some of those commitments came to. But for us, because we said we want to be single-use plastics free in the span of 2 years, it was just the beginning, which is why our commitment is now to think about questioning that, is plastics the enemy or is it the use of plastics that's the enemy, so that we've committed to being single-use plastics free in our hotels by 2020, waste free, meaning sending no waste to landfill in all of our operations by 2025, and carbon neutral by 2030. And when you think about that whole picture, then you can start to integrate, when do we actually need to be using these materials? When can we be collaborating to work collectively to push legislation or to find solutions that worked in some situations, not others? For example, water fountains are something that we've implemented in all of the locations where we're operating to remove not only the single-use plastic, but single-use bottles altogether. And how can we expand when those solutions are relevant? So this kind of collective action together and thinking about the circular economy as a whole, I think, is where we hope that this initiative can also take the sector, so that they're thinking smartly about the application of the use of plastic, because it is an incredible material that is saving a lot of food waste from occurring, that is allowing us to bring potable water to planes or places on the planet that it's otherwise really challenging to implement those sorts of solutions. So finding that balance, I think, is a really important part that we're hoping to do with this commitment.
Thank you. I take from this panel there's a very high ambition and also great need for collaboration and working together, and that's exactly what we hope the initiative will bring forward. So on the exact launch part of that, before we go to the audience with any questions, Dirk, I would like you to address the official launch, so to speak, of the initiative.
Thank you very much. The big question, dear ladies and gentlemen, how to become a signatory. As of today, accommodation businesses and destinations can join the initiative and become signatories. With the support of the advisory committee and building on the framework provided by the New Plastics Economy Global Commitment of Alan MacArthur, we have developed step-by-step guidance in the form of a detailed menu of commitments for accommodation businesses that should support the development of concrete roadmaps for implementation of the objectives of the initiative. The commitments that destinations need to make to become signatories are, as of today, also made publicly available online on the website of the initiative. We expect accommodation businesses and destinations to take the lead and to start submitting their concrete roadmaps to become signatories. For those companies representing other segments of the tourism value chain, such as airlines, tour operator, cruises, as well as for associations and non-governmental organizations, we are glad to extend an invitation for them to join the co-creation process of your specific commitments. It is time for the tourism sector to take on real action on the plastic pollution. Let's make this initiative a collective effort of our entire tourism value chain, so that we can achieve great results together, leveraging on the tourism sector's ability to act as an agent of change. Thank you very much. Gerald, back to you.
Thank you, Dirk. Yeah, just as I said, we have 5 minutes left here. If there's any questions from the audience to the panel, please raise your hands and you'll get the microphone. And you do need the microphone because it's still loud. So. Suggestions is also welcome. Or
Must have been very clear.
yeah.
Hi everybody, I'm Hubert Vanville from Better Fight Tourism. I have a short question. At the final, do you think you make economic savings or not?
I'll take that.
You can talk.
I can talk. I think it's possible. I think if you don't go into this thinking that you can make the sum add up, you'll give in straight away. So I think you have to be optimistic. I really, really think that the collaborative piece is key. And if we could just, in my industry, if we could get people to share ideas and actually share purchasing, etc. of course you can save money. Of course you can save money. So I would say absolutely.
If I can just add, as Megan mentioned before, I also mentioned we analyzed a couple of areas where this was possible and this already happened, and of course there are some areas where this is maybe more problematic, and those are still maybe under analysis and trying to find out the solutions, how to actually not make the business pay way more for such efficiencies. But definitely, as Matt mentioned, I think with collaboration and innovation, there shouldn't be such solutions.
If I can add to that as well, I think I came from the sciences before joining the private sector, right? So I think, but even with that background, I realized the product has to come first, right? You have to have a product that is attractive to the client, that is something that they want to join into. Unfortunately, we have a lot of statistics that show people are willing to choose brands that have values behind them, right? So I think aligning those two is a really important part of it, that the quality of your product is matching the client that is trying to join that movement with you. And I think importantly as well, it's important for the private sector and for us to start realizing where we include those triple bottom lines, the social, the environmental, and the economic, as part of our metrics of success in being able to establish a lot of these solutions. But I couldn't agree more. I think there are economic cases, and you've heard a couple of them presented by us today.
And I can add a last word. I agree with Matt. If you're entering it through the financial dimension, you won't do anything. At the end of the day, you have to make sure that you can make your business out of it. But you have to do it because it's the right thing to do. That's it. And because the clients want it. This being said, I'm convinced that it's a great way to reimagine our processes. We are doing the same thing the same way for years and years in the hotel industry. We are having the same product at the same moment, at the same places. And there's no reason why. We are, for instance, wondering ourselves if we need to continue to have mini bars in the hotels. That's something we're doing for years. It's consuming a lot of energy, and there's no need. We have many rooms so far in our hotels that are just welcoming one bottle of water every time to refresh, and it consumes a lot of energy just for that. So this is typically the kind of question, and plastic items are the same. How not taking this opportunity to reshape the way we provide the service and bringing other ways, the values, the quality, the comfort to our guests rather than these products that are no longer welcomed by our guests.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Thank you. So throughout this presentation and throughout this entire session, I've noticed that the topic of sharing is really at the very top. And I have a question in part for the panelists and in part for the program as a whole, is how do you envision the sharing of the best practices, of the things that you have tried and that have been successful, so that other people can copy, imitate, and learn from them?
I can start on this, and I think this is where we thank our hosts at the One Planet Network, because the function of that is not only to help convene initiatives like this that set guidelines for the industry together, but that have inputs from those who are in the industry itself, but also develop case studies, not only in plastics, but in many various areas. And so I think that's one part of it, or organizations like UNWTO or the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the One Planet Network. I think as well, transparency. All of our groups value greatly being able to publish our steps transparently, our memorias de sostenibilidad, or our sustainability reports that need to tell you a little bit about how we did what we did. And so I think that transparency across us, and then as well as independent collaborations that happen in a pre-competitive nature, are all part of that solution.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. I think we might all sit here as business people, but at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And we all leave work and we go home, and we have the same concerns for our families as anybody else. And when you end up with this problem that we've got now, that we're facing through climate change, plastics, and whatever else it may be, I just think it's an intuitive thing within human nature at that point to be more open, because the problem is shared. It's not an individual problem to any business, it's an individual problem to every business. And as long as we can collaborate and work together in that way, the more we share, history says the better the innovation that comes through as well. And that, I think, is, again, I just again pay thanks to this group. If we can work in the way that Megan is describing, I would expect some really good things to come out of this, and quite quickly and very positively. And it is simply by getting people from different groups in a room and encouraging them to work together.
If I can add as well, absolutely agree. In the last year we have trialed something similar, but in a smaller scale, because as TUI we have hotels which are part of the group, but also there is thousands of third-party suppliers. And we have developed the TUI Sustainable Hotel Area, which is a platform where we share best practices with our hoteliers, but also they can themselves upload the best practice and share it with the hoteliers, so they can inspire each other. Because what we sometimes found a problem was that one hotel from one part of the world was telling something to a hotel on the other side, and actually they couldn't come up with the same solution. So actually, by putting all these examples together and making it accessible to all our hotel partners, we were able to share this best practice. And this initiative is something, but on much bigger scale. So I think it will definitely work out.
And I completely agree. And I will just add one thing very important, is that if you look at the hotel industry, there are the big chains like us, like you, that have the means to do things. But most of the business is and the market size is operated by single hotels, family-run hotels, which have not necessarily the opportunity to invest and to find solutions. And this is where this kind of initiative is very important, because we as groups, as international companies, can share this knowledge, these solutions to these individual hotels, so that it turns to be a whole sector improvement as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for your questions. And everyone here, I think it's been a really good program, good panel. So please join me in thanking the panel, Megan, Matt, Branislav, and Arnaud. Thanks Dirk and Virginia for also making this possible, and for you to cope with the noise around the discussion. Thank you very much, and we're very excited about this, and we hope to see many of you in the initiative or in other occasions to collectively work on this very important issue. Thank you very much.